Hello friends, me here, and in this video I'll talk about the deck that I've brought to a second place finish at the Battle Hardened Hong Kong last month, which is Ira. Ira is a popular choice at the event, second only to Chain. And for a good reason. She is very easy to pick up and play, and as long as you're familiar with the fundamentals of the game, her attacks are very effective. And you have this very simple linear game plan that you can always follow if ever you're not sure about how to go with any of the matchups. What's great about Ira is that she's very flexible enough to play with any hand size. You can play as conservatively as just pitching a blue and then doing your Kodachi for one, Kodachi for two, or you can go all in on a five card hand and can do around 20 damage, sometimes more if the cards align. Her gameplay can be summarized as getting the most value out of your cards every turn, whether it's on the offense or defense, and then adding +1 to it because of Iris' ability. So that sort of keeps us above rate. So, as a refresher, value is the total number of points that we can assign to a card based on their power, defense, and other abilities. Our goal is to get as much points as we can by using these cards either on the offense or on the defense, or in situations where they can get the most value. A good common example of these are our blue cards. They're worth one value on offense, but three on defense when you use them for blocking. So they're better off blocking. Another good example would be Scar for a Scar. Scar for a Scar attacks for four, so it's four value on offense. Actually, five if you can give it go again, and then because of it, you can do further attacks. But on defense, it's kind of bad because it's only at two value because of its two defense. So the other half of Iris gameplay that doesn't get talked about as much is about redistributing value. We can get by most of the time by just milking out the most value out of our current hand. And usually that works. However, there are some matchups where we need to be on the offense or on the defense more. And this is where the decision on how to play cards like Dolby Strike, cards like Torrent of Tempo, cards like Cyrus of Safe Harbor can matter. In the chain matchup, for example, with this deck, we are on the clock because we can't block effectively enough to fatigue them. And the more cards that chain sees in their deck because of Soul Shackle, the more likely they can end the game on the back of a huge offensive turn. So we use these cards most of the time to just continue attacking and putting pressure on them. Sometimes, if they kind of clogged in our hand, we just arsenal one and then use it later for another bigger offense just to keep the pressure going on against them. Against other matchups like Bravo, for example, and his dominated attacks, it's usually better to just block with one of these cards if we can handle dominate well, rather than just trying to hit him harder with it. As the small bits of life that we save throughout just simply blocking with one card every time they dominate, it eventually adds up. So it gives us some space on whether which we might need later when we need to take more damage in order to keep a full hand of cards and try to close out the game. So yeah, in summary, you just play for value, then just adjust accordingly depending on the matchup and the situation. If you're not sure about the situation or the matchup, the safest play is to just block. It's almost always never wrong to block. So let's move on to the cards. Most of these card choices I have in my Ira deck are nothing new or mind blowing. In fact, I just copied most of it from Patrick R's successful Ira list at Battle Hardened. However, if you do need a good breakdown of how each of these cards work, I have co-written a guide with PVT Void or Draw Trick, and it's on Metafy. So I've added my notes there on most of the cards and how to use them. Or if you can just wait a little bit more, I also have a beginner guide right in the works. It'll go over most of the stuff that you'll need to learn about her in the Sage format, including the cards. Anyway, let's go to the equipment first. I've opted for a more conservative approach to the equipment, so just a blade Beckoner helm and a full set of the Tiger armors, along with her trusted harmonized Kodachis. In hindsight, I think it's worth exploring Mask of Many Faces plus the Life of the Party combo, especially if you want a more offense oriented Ira deck. was- I was actually thinking it might also be good to add even bigger than that in that kind of deck, just to search for Life of the Party faster and then just go all out offense. But we'll see. So the start of these equipments is definitely the synergy of the Tiger armors. So you have Pouncing Paws, which creates a Tiger token. You have the Tearing Shuko, which buffs the Tiger token. And then the Blood Scent, which gives you one resource whenever you play a Crouching Tiger this turn. So all of these add up to give a lot of good value and has a very important function in the Ira deck, which is unclogging your all red hands. So you get a 2 attack for 0. Then you get 1 resource, which you can use for something like Withering Thorns. And then you can play out the rest of your hand, especially if they cost 0. So my tip here is that of course, you use them to block the important breakpoints. So, for example, if an enemy is attacking you for 4 with Snatch and threatening to draw a card, you block with one of these along with a 3 defense card. But more importantly, the moment you draw into an all red hand, now is that's probably the best time to consider if you want to use all of that armors for defense during that turn and then using that 1 extra resource from Bloodsend to unclog your all red hand and mount a good offense on your following turn. So, for example, if you draw into a hand of Scar for a Scar, Bittering Thorns, Snatch, and let's say Torrent of Tempo, it's probably a good time to use the Tiger Armors to, along with Torrent of Tempo, to just block out just enough so you can trigger your Scar for a Scar. And then during your turn, you do Scar for a Scar, use Pouncing Paws and Tearing Shuko, along with Iris ability to attack with a Tiger for 3, and then use the Bloodset for that 1 resource, play out your Bittering Thorns, and then you threaten them finally with your finisher, which is a Snatch. So, because of this armor set, we're able to unclog that all red hand, which have been a lot worse if we don't have that 1 resource from Blood Scent. As for the Blade Beckoner Helm, how most people use this is you block it. You use it to block an attack action first, like Snatch, just like any other 1 point armor. And then because of its guardable ability, it will only put -1 on it. So it will go to 0. But when you use it to block a weapon attack down the line, its ability will give it 1 more armor. So you can use it to block stuff like Kodachis, or if you get attacked by a 4 attack weapon like Anathos, for example, or that other Guardian Hammer that attacks for 4. So yeah, that's it for the equipment. We will now go to the rest of the deck. I will not go through each of these cards one by one. A lot of them are either self-explainable or like you'll see them in most IRA lists, and they're there for a reason because they're like some of the best attack action cards that IRA can have. But what I will go through are some of the card choices that I used for my deck, which is sometimes not in other IRA lists. Also, if there are some small notes that I can think of about each of the cards, I'll also talk about it here. So let's go. So let's go to Bittering Thorns first. You try to play this on your second chain link, where it can be buffed by Iris ability. This is because all of the blocking cards in this format currently block for 4, or at least any 0 cost defense reaction and card can block for a maximum of only 4 defense. So that 1 point will go over, and you can get slightly more value out of it. Iris ability gets transferred into your next attack action. So what more often your opponents will do is use 2 cards to block this. So 2 3 blocks, or maybe a 3 block and a 2 block, or they'll use their armors for it. In which case, all of these scenarios work well for us because it slows down their offense or it wears down their armor, so they can't defend well against our Kodachis later down the line. So either way works to our favor. Next is Flex Claws. So this is my other choice for one cost for power go again because it can create a Crouching Tiger token. And you can do this funny four Reflex Claws and then one with the Crouching Tiger Naira's ability. And then two other one damage attacks with the two Kodachis late in the game. Because usually people just let Flex Claws hit because the Crouching Tiger token doesn't really matter much unless you're buffing it with Iris ability or with Tearing Shuko's. Speaking of which, it also gives you a little bit of flexibility when using the Tiger armors, as you don't have to fully commit to using them all at the same time, knowing that you have an alternative source of a Tiger token. However, at the end of the day, this isn't really as reliable when it comes to producing tigers. Sometimes when you need a tiger token, people just block it fully randomly, maybe on a read or maybe just by by coincidence. So you will still want to just pop the all of these at the same time. Most of the time. Still, it's good to know that you have a last ditch resort of a crouching tiger token if ever you need one for blood scent, for example. However, if you need a more reliable alternative to flex claws, one thing I'd look into is the red leg tap because it combos with blue rising knee thrust instead. So it's not much, but it's a nice little combo that could happen if it lines up. It's a good bonus there. Let's talk about Humble. So Humble is the biggest addition I made to the deck. If you'll notice, most heroes and Sage rely on their abilities to function well. You have Chain, Ira, Oldhim, Bravo, Lexi, Briar, and a few other heroes. So in my head, it kind of made sense to add a card that could shut those down, or at least make them use cards to block it and slow them down. In practice, though, its impact is a little less than I expected. Most of my opponents would just block it out and then slow down the game, play a little bit conservatively, arsenal, and then do their big damage turn during their next turn. But at least it kind of slowed them down and it got us a bit of tempo. So, in a way, I guess it sort of worked. However, it is a bad card on defense and on all red turns, wherein you need two resources to play it. So there's an argument for like replacing this with something more reliable and well-rounded, like Bluster buff. Next up is spinning wheel kick. So I prefer this over bleed out from the original list because of its reliability, and there's this small upside of it comboing into each other if you happen to draw them together. Bleed out, I think, is a liability if you can get your Kodachis to hit, or even if you just hit with Kodachi for one, which is the most likely to not be blocked. Bleed out is just a one cost for go again, which is what spinning wheel kick is. Also, you can't use bleed out for all red hands, just like humble, and also it's bad on defense. So that's why I picked spinning wheel kick over it. It's also the same logic on why I didn't use cut through and I opted for scar for a scar instead. Next is one of my surprisingly favorite cards in the deck, Razor Reflex. So all I have are just praises for this card. I was able to steal a win from 10 health by using two of these on an unblocked Flex Claws. So my opponent didn't block the Flex Claws. I did two Razor Reflexes, and then the game just ended right there since they don't have a defense reaction. So just like Pummel, this is a very strong card in a format that doesn't have Sink Below and Fate Foreseen. And of course, it is amazing with Snatch, where you draw a card and you give Snatch go again if it hits. Finally, let's talk about the blues. Most of them are for pitching, blocking, and feeding, looking for a scrap. So, one of the things in hindsight that I wasn't able to optimize in my list was fully utilizing their combo abilities. It's just a minor buff in the grand scheme of things, but sometimes, kind of helps. So, for example, in our Ira guide with PPT Void, he mentioned how Blue Crane Dance can combo with Soul Bead Strike, as well as I mentioned before, Rising Knee Thrust works well with Leg Tap. So most of the time, those two cards, those combos won't line up, but when they do, they provide a small buff, so that's a little bit more value, which is important late in the game. And these small optimizations can sometimes help in the off chance that they do line up. So it's just good to have. Also, some of your blues do line up with each other. So you can do this funny thing. For example, you draw into an all blue hand. You can pitch one for Kodachi for one. You crack your pouncing paws, create a crouching tiger. You attack with it for one. So it gets buffed with Ira's ability. And then you do a blue pouncing key for two. And then you do aspect of Tiger Mind for one. And then you create the crouching tiger token. And then you buff that crouching tiger token with your tearing Shuko. So it attacks for two. And then use your remaining resources for another Kodachi for one, and then whatever blue you have last, you can just throw it out. So it's a cute little sequence, and the damage is small, but it is very deadly when the life totals are low because of how long the chain link goes. This is like a one, two, three, four, five card chain link. Six if you throw in that last blue that you're holding on to. So you might consider pitching that early blue pouncing key or aspect of Tiger Might that you draw early in the game so that they could come around later and you can try to make use of them if your Tiger armors are still up. And lastly, I think that the right blue count for the deck should be around 14 or 15, not 16 definitely. 13 is probably pushing it. And I remember before in Commoner, I used to run 12, but I think 14 or 15 would be the right number, depending on how comfortable you are. So for the last part, I'll just go through my matches that I've played during the run. So I've faced against six chains throughout the day, and I know so the percent win rate is not bad. I'll take it. My general strategy against chain is to just aggro them hard and pray they don't get a crazy turn. That's it. Yeah, just pressure them. Go first if you can, just so that they don't leak arcane damage and they're one turn slower in activating their soul shackle because usually chains just set up on their turn one. But going second still isn't the end of the world. Both works fine for us because going second, at least the tempo is on our side and we can aggro effectively. So you can go AB0 if you're going first and AB1 when you're going second. Just that so arcane damage won't leak, but you can just gamble on them just setting up on turn one and not doing arcane damage anyway, and just put on your Blade Beckoner or Mass of Many Faces instead. I also faced two Oldhams during the tournament, both of which were favored into, but the games are still close. For this matchup, though, you might want to change your offense a little bit in that you'll want to arsenal and set up big turns as much as possible to try to go over their defenses, especially because they're very effective at blocking Kodachis, and most of their powerful defense reactions cost resources. So that's one less card blocking our attacks. So the idea is that we do uh, more chain links than the number of cards that they can defend with. So try to arsenal as often as you can and do those big five card hand attacks. I've also faced a Decimator Dorinthia, which I'm always happy to see because I really love that deck, especially in Commoner. And for her, we also handle her like old him. So we try to set up big five card hands to try to overwhelm her defenses. Finally, I've put a link below of my new Ira list. If I were to play her again in the next Sage event, this one includes Mask of Many Faces. So if this were successful or is this doing well, I probably make another video or write about it. But if you want, you can give it a try and let me know how it works out for you. So I'd like to thank my teammates at Unbox. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, link down below. Especially Jet, who pushed me to use this deck. He was supposed to be the one to use it, and I think he would have won the whole thing if he used it. But he got into day two of the calling because of he's a great player, so I got to use the deck. Also, big thanks to Justin who gave me advice on the chain matchup and discuss what's our best approach to it. We were talking about between just out aggroing him and fatiguing a chain, but he argued that given how the deck was built, or my current deck was built, it's better to just go on the offense because fatiguing chain completely in this format is kind of hard because of the lack of defense reactions like Sink Below and Fate Foreseen. Plus, this build of Ira doesn't have the tools for a prolonged game because of we have a lot of two blocks. And even the decks that are specialized on defense, such as Fatigue Oldhim, still has to rely on chain low rolling a bit on their soul shackle to actually fatigue them. So yeah, at the end of the day, we both agree that okay, we just go balls to the wall aggro and try to beat the chain down before things get out of hand. And for a while, it worked until finals. Justin also wrote the best gravy guide out there, along with Jacob Clements, which I'll link also below. Also, shout outs to Chris Mapalo, my fellow Pinoy who made top 8 also on chain. And of course to Evan who won the whole thing after a very, very, very fun finals match. And of course to Jotrick or PVT Void who invited me to co-write his IRA guide, which I'll also link down below. Thank you for watching this video and good luck in your games, especially to those who are playing Sage and calling Akihabara this weekend. If you have any questions for me, you can reach out to me in the comments below or on my socials. Okay, that's it. That's all for today. Thank you guys and take care. Bye bye.